Well, the reason why I say, is it, is because I'm not entirely sure that that's what art is for. In other words, is art a way of telling us how to live our lives? In other words, of giving us values. It's not a religion, it's not a creed. And I see this question of values, of whether they be moral values or any other kind of values, as belonging to religion. What art seems to be doing, to me, is holding up a mirror to us, as listeners, as viewers, as readers, holding up a mirror and saying, do you recognize yourselves here? Not telling us or judging us, but saying, is there anything that resonates with you? It awakens feelings that may be dormant. It helps us connect with ourselves and, of course, with one another. Because in a room full of listeners, there will be moments where we all feel the same thing. And that is a very beautiful thing, because we're all brought into harmony with one another. But I don't think it's values that it is giving. You could say that maybe about pieces of writing, where there is a moral to the story. And often you can see in pure music that a moment of tension might resolve, or is one resolutions of tension. Maybe there is a moral there, maybe there is a value that is being transmitted. But of course then there is music that doesn't resolve at all, where there is percussion and dissonance, and the ugliness is a reflection of so much of life, and that ought to be reflected too, not just the beautiful things. Art is not there to be beautiful pictures of sunsets and flowers, but it's there to reflect what society is, and let us have a moment to look at society and to think about it. To be an artist or a musician, or some people argue you are an artist or you're not an artist, and that is something you're born with. I don't particularly want to go there. I don't think it's true. I hope it's not true. Otherwise, why would I be in education? And I do a lot of teaching. And I can see people with enormous gifts, let's say pianistic gifts, and others have a purely musical gift. I think that was where I started, fascination with art, with the sound of the instrument, but really no pianistic aptitude for the instrument. That came with a lot of hard work, and it continues to be very hard work. The qualities you need: you certainly need a certain kind of confidence. You certainly need imagination. You certainly need some kind of technique to get that across. You need patience in abundance. You need a great deal of determination. You need a lot of humility. You need honesty. You need good physical and mental toughness. You need luck. You need to be born where your talent and your interests will be fostered and be made possible. When I think of the number of, let's say, wonderful singers there are in the world who never sing, the number of wonderful pianists in the world who have never even seen a piano, people with extraordinary potential who never had opportunity. It is not just about those elite who managed to succeed. It's just, the potential is massive. And the more people who are studying the piano or doing their thing, or whatever art it is, the more it will rise and succeed and have fulfillment. And success is fulfillment. It's not the great career. It's just being able to say something meaningful through the art. Money. It's very, very sad, but money is often plays a very big part. You need money, and someone needs to help me. And there are organisations and scholarships and ways of letting that happen. But it's still relatively few of us have the great good fortune to be able to play. We play in our childhood, and then if we're artists, we're allowed to keep playing till the end. And that's a very lucky thing to do. They're both kinds of performing, but they're different. I've personally always struggled with the situation where there is an audience listening, or even if it's a microphone listening, switch on a microphone and something that was going perfectly well and with great ease and seemed to be very meaningful, suddenly something takes over that makes me very self-conscious. So I've had to work on that. So I don't think I'm a natural stage performer. I don't think I'm a natural teacher either, but I've fallen in love with teaching. Just because I enjoy finding out about people. I enjoy the learning aspect of teaching. I'm learning from students all the time. For me, teaching is a kind of exchange. And my job as a teacher is to ask the right questions. Yeah, of course, sometimes the students ask questions and I try and give answers in as much as is possible. But it seems to me that the right questions are more important than the right answers. I suppose a mentor, by mentor you meaning, let's say, a teacher or a helper. Well, it's like many a relationship, I imagine. We want someone who will support, that's what mentoring is, who will not judge, who will foster the creative talent that is there and not impose their own ideas or their own values, who will encourage but not set the direction. In other words, just to be a place for art, to create a place for art to grow without determining what the art will be. I'm struggling a bit with the word mentor, because can it be so many things? But that's what I feel a teacher should be. A teacher should be someone who comes up with different ideas for different people. A teacher-student relationship, every teacher-student relationship is a different relationship. It should never just be the one thing. This is how I teach. There are at least two ways of seeing that, and I imagined you might have been meaning the emotions within the piece of music, because there is a way of handling them too. If you ask any actor, they're having to do sometimes extraordinary things involving emotions, but they have to find enough distance to do it. They can't just kill themselves any more than a singer can ruin their voice screaming when something angry happens. We have to go through all the emotions in the piece and rehearse that. And so we stop crying for a start. A lot of the time I cry when I'm practicing because I'm so affected by what's happening in the music. But I really have to have that finished and out of my system before I go to play to an audience. Imagine how pathetic if I were sitting there in tears. If they cry, that's fine. But you're actually not talking about the emotions of the music, you're talking about the emotion of performance itself. There are so many ways of dealing with that too, and I'm not sure I've ever dealt with it very well. The best answer I can come up with is just to be very well prepared because that is the only bit we can control. It's the only bit we're in charge of, is how well we're prepared. The warm-up and feeling that we're physically ready, but also the mental preparation and knowing the music extremely well. That's what I mean by preparation. But other people, I don't know, some people work on the mind through meditation, through breathing exercises, various. Some people go to the doctor and get medication. You know, which can be as serious as that. You've got to. It's unusual, I would have thought. Certainly, my experience as a child was there was really no fear. And what was there to fear? You would make mistakes. You know? It is when people come along, they say you mustn't make mistakes. Or people play you a recording and there are no mistakes. And you think this is just superhuman. I will never be like that. So you get paralyzed with anxiety. But of course, if you talk to the people who made these extraordinary recordings, they say, but that took me 5 days to do half an hour of music. It was all little bits cut together, so all the mistakes were cut out and thrown in the bin. But the students ought to know that. They ought to know that we are human, mistakes are normal. It's about the why, often. And I was talking about our job, I think, as a player. There are many angles and ways of thinking of this. But the music we're playing it's very obvious thing to say, but it's silent. It's silent and kind of dead and dusty and silent until we bring it to life. So we are the creators. We're not just the interpreters, we are the creators of the sound. Now, this sound has been written down in a kind of notation, which is a shorthand, usually by a male dead person 200 years ago or something. And we have this thing gathering dust and we make it into sound. I think maybe what the student was talking about was conversations I had about, the audience in the room reacts to what they hear. But I think the student in that case was also reacting to what they heard. In other words, they would do... And I didn't feel they were the one thinking, feeling, speaking, but they were just reacting to the sound. In other words, the feeling came after. But for us, as the performer, the feeling has to come before. We think something, we feel something, we breathe and we speak. This is the way it always happens. You think of something, you remember something, it makes you feel something, it makes you say something. Yes, so then I do... And then I'm speaking. Because I imagine the sound before I make it. And this imagining awakens a feeling. The feeling awakens the sound. And it's that way around. Not sound then feeling. That's their job out there. They will respond to what they hear. But we have to intend what we say. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and also the feeling behind harmony, for example. Because we might have... or they mean quite different things. But it's only knowing major that makes us understand minor, and it's only minor that makes us understand major. It's only light that makes us understand darkness, and darkness makes us understand light, and neither is better than the other. Well, the point where one changes to the other, yes, but I'm just saying in the duality. Now, duality is our name, our word of the week. And it was conversations, many, that I've had with Daniel Chubano about duality, about major, minor, about the middle of the piano. This is something I talk about all the time, about these. Because when I was a 3-year-old child, it wasn't so much the sound of the piano, though that was exciting. It was the look of the piano with a middle note and then everything opening out like butterfly wings, like hands, like a face. It has this symmetry from that point outward. So let's say Daniel and I have talked a great deal about how that and that are different, but they're also exactly the same. They're exactly the same position. One is a right-hand position, one is a left-hand position, and that is the resulting sound. Right hand, left hand. So they're not similar, they are the same and opposite. They are the same and opposite, just as there is duality in everything, in nature, in us as human beings. So we have right, left, up, down, we have dark, light. And I've had expected, this has been quite an amazing festival. It's just very short, because of course if you take the concept of duality, of the two poles in anything, of the two halves of anything, this bipolarity, then we could really have a festival that lasts for a year, with theatre and dance and drawing and painting and talks. And so in little ways, he's managed to show the jazz classical thing, this twinning and duality. And we should have had more women pianists, for example. There all seem to be men. Why that? I don't know. We should have more women composers. This festival happened when the 200th birthday of the greatest woman pianist of the 19th century, a German woman called Clara Schumann, who was married to Robert Schumann. Her birthday was, I think, on Thursday or Friday, 13th of September, and she would have been 200 years old. And even though we were talking duality and the two genders ought to figure, there was no mention of Clara Schumann, and that was something I think we could have included. But you can't do everything in a very short time. I'm really not an expert about technology and art. There are fantastic things happening, and there have been little bits of that in this festival, of projected images and art forms coming together, and it's becoming more and more possible. Also long distance things, you can have the same thing happening in Tokyo and in Pyongyang at the same time, just at exactly the same moment. There's a very exciting potential through technology. One thing I don't think will happen, I can't see happening, is for the performing artist to become a robot. I'm sure there'll be funny games played with the idea, but a machine can never really be an artist. I have quite a lot of difficulty with electronic sound. Certainly electronically generated piano sound. Some people think a keyboard, if it's got black and white notes like this one, even if you plug it into the wall, that it's a piano, but of course it's not. I've done quite a lot with extended, more contemporary techniques on the piano, not involving electronics at all, but you can get lots of different sounds by reaching into the piano, which would be open, strumming the strings, damping the strings, touching the strings, and of course you can't do any of that if it's just electricity inside. This is quite an amazing machine, and I don't think it can be replaced any more than I think a pianist can be replaced.